Hello and welcome back to another episode of our expansion franchise here on the channel, and it's a pretty big episode for us. It is a milestone episode number 50. With this playthrough, we are in the year 2033 with our expansion franchise and closing in on the final month. We are in the final month of play before potentially the playoffs. We have some work to do, though. We are at 500 at 63 and 63. Before we get the episode started, though, I do want to thank you to everyone that's watching and that has watched the channel and has subscribed since the starting of these episodes, and all the comments and feedbacks you guys give. I appreciate that. And it's been fun. It's been a lot of fun, and this is going to continue, but this will likely be the last episode for a while. As I've mentioned in a couple of episodes already, that I will be moving across country and have to obviously pause the game and pause all the episodes, and just to play through and everything. It's just going to be too much to try to play while we are traveling and while I am moving into a new place and visiting family and things like that. I am in the military and I haven't been home in 3 or 4 years now since I've visited home. So I will visit some family and some friends there for a week or two, and then I'll make my final leg of the trip and to my new destination and my new home. So bear with us and bear with me until I get set up. I am hoping that is somewhere around the last week of July. I am all set up and ready to roll. Very worst case scenario, first week of August. So you'll have about a month pause here on the channel. Again, I apologize for that, for all of you that are watching every episode. I'm sorry, but obviously I can't not move. So unfortunate timing, but nonetheless, it has got to happen, and it is going to happen. So I rest assured I will pick these episodes back up. This playthrough is not going away. I am going to continue it 100%, and I have full intentions of continuing it until the next game comes out. We'll see. We'll see how the playthrough goes, but it's been a lot of fun so far, so I will keep it going. But again, thank you for everyone that's watched thus far, and I hope you come back to us whenever we pick things back up. But on to the episode, and on to what is likely our last month of play here in 2033. This episode, we will definitely get through September, and if we make the playoffs, I will probably include that into this episode. I don't know how much more recording time I'm going to get, so I'm going to try to take advantage of it. And then if we don't make it in the playoffs, I'll obviously stop things there, and we will pick up where we left off whenever I get moved. A couple of notes here. It is roster expansion day, and I did already go ahead and make those call-ups. It is going to be Steve Geiger from the offensive side, a third baseman / first baseman. We're going to play him against left-handed hitters or left-handed pitchers as a backup, really. We're not going to play him full-time, obviously, because we got Danny Fouts, but he will be a backup first baseman against left-handed pitchers, and obviously be in the lineup or be in the clubhouse for pinch hitting and things like that. Obviously not pinch running, but he has good leadership ability. I like that. I wanted that on the team again, or added another one to it, and he's pretty well developed, waiting on that power to finish developing, but he's got a pretty good hitting profile, and we need somebody that could hit for maybe some average to kind of boost this offense whenever we can. So we went ahead and made that call. He's also already been up on the big league team. You guys might remember he started out this spring just on fire, and then we added him to the roster, and we had to make some moves, and unfortunately he was the odd man out, and we had to send him back down. But he is already on the roster and is already making the league minimum, so that kind of factored into the decision too, instead of calling someone else and activating their MLB time and things like that. Pitching wise, we did call someone up for their major league debut, and that is going to be Mr. Jimmy Boswell, a 23-year-old 16th round pick. You guys might remember we put him in the development lab to improve his secondary stuff, our secondary pitch, and it was successful. His stuff went up to 50. We like the potential to 60. Everything else is kind of average, a little bit above average control potentially, but he has a good curveball and a good cutter, and he throws from the left side, ground ball pitcher type, good stamina, and holds on runners really well, and he has good work ethic, and I just like it. 16th round pick, what a moment. I don't know if I've ever had a 16th round pick make it to the major leagues. I'm sure I have. I just never paid attention to it as much as I am now, obviously, because I'm recording everything and putting out episodes. But I know for a fact, we talked about it when I put him in the development lab, that he was the first time I've ever put anyone probably past like the top 5 or 10 rounds into the development lab. Obviously, that's new this year, but definitely a first, and maybe the only time I ever put anyone that was a 16th round pick in the development lab. But I thought it was worth a shot since he had good work ethic, and it worked out well for us. He developed that cutter and that stuff up to league average. Don't know how effective he'll be. Everything else is kind of league average-ish. We would like that stuff to fully develop, but nonetheless, give him a shot. He had a 1.42 ERA in the minors, so I think he's earned it. When we will see what he's got, and we're just going to put him in a middle relief role. Nothing crazy. We'll see how he does. If he starts pitching well, maybe we throw him in a setup role, but low expectations for him. Just an added arm in the bullpen to give some guys some days of rest here in September as we close out the season. The final note I need to make, and I am going to go ahead and apologize. I did not see this, and I'm kind of upset that I didn't. But when the league expanded to 34 teams now in the off season, there were some changes to the schedule, and I didn't notice it until after the season had started. And if you guys know anything about this game, once the season starts, then you can't mess with the schedule. I mean, I'm sure there's a workaround somewhere, but I'm not technologically savvy enough to figure that out, and I'm not even going to try because I don't want to mess up this playthrough this far in. But there's some funky things going on with the schedule, and for some reason there are only 150 games on the schedule, not 162. And I double checked the league settings, and I was like, okay, well, is this changed? And sure enough, it says 162 games there, and it starts on April 1st is the season start date. But for whatever reason, there are only 150 games on my schedule, and other teams as well. I'm pretty sure all the teams, I only checked a couple, but it all added up to 150. And it was not until really June that I noticed that things were a little off. As you can see here in June, 3-day break randomly. That doesn't happen in Major League Baseball. All the other days are just, you get a day off here and there. July, nothing crazy, right? You get a day off just in the middle, and then the day before the All-Star break, a day after the All-Star break, and then another day. So that's totally normal there. August, again, same thing. One day, here and there. Nothing crazy. September is not normal. You got the 22nd, and then after that, I am off the 23rd, the 24th, the 25th, the 26th, and then we play 3 games, and then we're off on the 30th, and there are no games in October. So for whatever reason, the schedule is wrong, and we're only going to get 150 games this season. So that is quite frustrating. Also, you can see here, the season was supposed to start on April 1st, and we didn't start play until April 4th, and then we had a 3-day break immediately. So at that point, I knew something was up, but like I said, I couldn't fix it. And then it didn't occur to me until June that we may not play 162 games. And then sure enough, when I saw the schedule in September, I was like, this isn't enough games, and we're not going to October. So again, I'm sorry. I didn't realize until after the season started. That's something I should have checked. Since we're at 34 teams, I should have just thought to like, okay, well that's going to add some time onto the season. But unfortunately, they cut it short. So in the off season next year, or this off season, a couple things might happen. One, I might delete the 2 expansion teams. I don't want to do that because it gets rid of the players that were pulled from other teams, right? So I think that's not right. I don't like how that has to happen. Or whenever the preseason starts, I count this game or this schedule out to make sure we get to 162, which is probably what I'm going to do, and then leave the league the way it is. And obviously, I'm not going to let it expand ever again, but that's kind of where I'm at. Those are my 2 options, I feel like. Either I delete the 2 teams and then we go back to 32 teams and we just keep the schedule like it was, or I leave the 2 teams and just double check the schedule, triple check the schedule to start the season just to make sure nothing funky is going on. Because I don't want to play with 150 game seasons. Like, I want 162 game seasons. That's the most realistic way, right? Like, the Major League Baseball isn't going to shorten the season, to my knowledge. So that's kind of where we're at. I do apologize for the unrealistic play of that. I didn't even realize it. I wish that the game had a way of letting us add games onto the schedule, but it doesn't appear that way. But that's where we're at. And we are 63-63 in September, and we have 24 ball games left. So math says that's 150 games. Unfortunate, but it is where we are, and it is what it is at this point. It is what it is, but it ain't what it ought to be, is what they say, I guess. So we're going to play through and see where we can get. Mason Davis, just an update on him. He's hitting 241, so definitely low on his average. But he's 6 home runs away from 30 home runs, and he's only played 97 games. And then we play 24 more games. It's going to be obviously the least amount of games he's ever played, but he could still get to that 30 home run mark, which he has done each of his first 5 seasons in his career, 4 seasons in his career. So we will see if he gets there and see how the rest of the team does. We have to be above 500 to finish our 500 this month to finish above 500. So hopefully we can make that happen, guys. I'm optimistic, let's say. I'm cautiously optimistic. And unfortunately, it's not going how we want it to go right now. We are 5-7 in September. So we are now 68-70 overall. We have 12 games left, so we need to play much better. We got 3 games at Oakland, 3 games against Chicago White Sox, 3 against Baltimore, and then 3 against Tampa. I do believe we are all but pretty much eliminated from the playoffs. We're 7 games back, but let's be honest, it's just not going to happen. The only good news is we do play Chicago, who is in the last spot of the wild card, so maybe we can make something happened there. But other than that, we play the Oakland A's at 65 and 73, so that hopefully is in our favor. And the Baltimore Orioles are pretty bad as well. So are the Tampa Bay Rays. So if there ever were a time for us to make a run and get over 500, it's against 3 or 4 of the worst teams in the league. So we have a chance here to get above 500 and maybe get lucky at the wild card spot. I don't think that's going to happen though. So let's find out. Update is Mason is 4 home runs away from 30. Jorge Rivera now has 35 home runs, hitting 245, so he's still third in the leaderboard. And Vicente Jasso is at 16 home runs, just hitting 236 though. So the just getting on base has been a struggle this year. For whatever reason, it's been a struggle. They have good hitting profiles that suggest they're 260 to 280 to 300 hitters. Danny Fouts and Isaac Cardenas are holding up their end, but it seems like everyone else is kind of lacking. Although Steve Cook is hitting 267, considering he was out for a while. He's got 73 games. Not a ton of production home run wise, but has a positive WRC plus and a positive WAR, so he's been solid for us, and ironically is one of our better average hitters. But yeah, so that's where we stand, and we will, I guess, go ahead and send this thing out and see if we can get above 500. And we've made it to the last series of the season, and we are 1 game above 500 at 74 and 73. We have played really well in the last 3 series, as we kind of expected, at least for 2 of those series. We took 2 of 3 from Oakland. We took 2 of 3 from the White Sox, which was a bonus because they had a better record than us. And 2 of 3 from Baltimore. Almost swept Baltimore. We lost in 10 innings to them, and that would have solidified a almost for sure 500 record, because that would have put us at 75 wins. So we need to win 2 of the next 3 games to be above 500, and at least 1 more game to finish the season at 75 and 75. So a big series for us, and hopefully we can win 2 of 3 here. And the regular season is over, and we just did make it to 500. We lost the first 2 games of the series to Tampa Bay, and then won the last game to pull even at 75 and 75, and unfortunately wasn't good enough to make the playoffs. We finished 15.5 games back in the division and 6.5 games back in the wild card. And Jorge Rivera got 40 home runs. I do believe that's the Mobile Bay Bears' first ever 40 home run season. And arguably his best season. He had 40 home runs, 14 stolen bases, hit 251, 113 WRC plus. He did all of that in less games than he's ever played. So very, very good season for him. Unfortunately, he's 32, so he'll be starting to decline. I am sure of it pretty soon. Let's take a look at Mason, and unfortunately just never got going home run wise, but obviously only played in 119 games, still hit 26 home runs. That 6 weeks obviously cost him, and unfortunately turns out to be his least productive season, only a 91 WRC plus. So definitely not something you want from a guy you're paying $20 million to. But nonetheless, it is what it is. His fielding rating was, again this year, great. I don't know if it's going to be enough to win the Gold Glove. It should be. I didn't look at all the other infielder stats. He did miss 6 weeks, so there's a likelihood that his zone rating and his range and all that stuff may not be good enough. Somebody might be a little bit better than him, but it would be nice for him to win his 5th straight. Unfortunately, the 6 weeks of that injury did cost him quite a bit this year. Still, our center fielder, though, obviously is not going anywhere. We have him until 2039, and he's only 27 years old. So just a down year. That's bound to happen. And next year, hopefully, he can bounce back. But let's go ahead and take a look at the playoffs and see who is in. The Cleveland Guardians obviously win their division, and so do the Detroit Tigers. The Royals, White Sox, Blue Jays, and Mariners all got in on the wild card. The Dodgers and Phillies from the National League win the division, and the Reds, Cardinals, Braves, and Giants get in on the wild card. So we will play out the playoffs and then wrap things up on this episode. And the 2030 World Series is set. The Los Angeles Dodgers will take on the wild card team, the Chicago White Sox. Very interesting playoffs, I guess. The Guardians lost to the White Sox in 5. The Detroit Tigers swept the Blue Jays. Then the Tigers got beat by the White Sox in 6. And then the Dodgers swept the Cardinals. The Phillies took out the Giants in 5. And then in 7 games, the Dodgers beat the Phillies. So that's pretty realistic there. And then the Dodgers and the White Sox will face off in the 2033 World Series. So let's find out who takes home the hardware. And your 2033 World Series champions are the Chicago White Sox. They absolutely demolished the Los Angeles Dodgers. You love to see it. They swept them in 4 games and took home the hardware. So congrats to the White Sox. I thought that, hopefully I was hoping that this was our year, but the team just didn't perform like I thought they would this year. For whatever reason, we'll deep dive into that in the off season and figure out what it was, or maybe what we think it was, or if it was just bad luck. I don't know. But nonetheless, we came out of there with a 75-75 record. We did secure our third straight 500 or better season. Definitely trending in the wrong direction. 3 years ago, we won 95 games. Last year, we won 84 games. This year, we won 75. However, I will put an asterisk beside this season because, as you can see there, we're missing 12 games because of the weird scheduling that I talked about in the beginning. So, potentially could have had 80 wins. It still probably wouldn't have been as good as last year. We did struggle mightily pretty much all season. And obviously those struggles were influenced somewhat by all the injuries that we had. Multiple pitchers were down. Multiple hitters were down at the same time. We were pulling from our minor league system just like crazy. A lot of players got major league playing time, and slowly but surely towards the end, we were able to piece everybody back together, except for a couple of pitchers, and got whole again. But unfortunately, just couldn't get hot, and it cost us. But nonetheless, we still finished at 500 or better, so we are 3 straight years at that mark. Still only 1 playoff appearance, but something tells me that next year's got to be back to the playoffs. Like, we have so much talent coming up, especially on the pitching side. If the offense can just click from the get-go, we will be rolling and on a crash course to return to the playoffs. The team that is potentially going to be put together next year is a very solid team if we can get all of our pitching healthy. Specifically, Mr. Leeson. He is still going to be out for, it looks like, 4 more months. So math tells me November, December, January, February. So we'll have him back right around spring training, just in time for him to pitch 1 inning again and tear his labrum. I don't know, guys. I don't know if he's ever going to turn out. He might be a bust for us. He's still only 25 years old, though. And when he comes back, he'll be 26. We still have him until 2040. Unfortunately, we're going to be paying him a pretty penny. But it is what it is. We got him, and we're going to roll with him. And hopefully next year he can get healthy and finally play a season in the major leagues. That would be fantastic for this team. And just monumental. But that is the season. We are officially in the off season. A lot of things to do here in the off season. I will look through them. Obviously, we have a lot of personnel leaving. A lot of staff members are retiring. So we have a lot of things that we have to go through and do this off season to get this team whole again, not just from the player standpoint, but from the front office and staff standpoint too. We have 2 players that have options, Mr. Greg Ricks and Connor Cook. I believe I will probably execute those. Connor Cook's only at $2 million and Greg Ricks is at $5 million. He did have his worst season with us at a 4 point. Well, actually, it's not his worst season. It's his second worst season with us if you count his 2030 season. Well, technically, his 2028 season. Man, he's been out with us for a minute. But we didn't move him over to the starting role until 2029 full time, and he's done much better for us there. 33 years old. He'll be 34 soon. I will probably execute that option at $5 million just because we can't count on Leeson and we can count on Ricks because he's been an Ironman. He is now a durable player, but he's going to take the ball every 5 days and pitch. So he's probably going to get the option. And then we got our new budget. It is our biggest budget ever at $166 million. So that is a great thing. But we do have a large payroll next year at potentially $112 million. That's going to change a little bit because there's going to be some players that I'm not going to offer arbitration to. I can just tell you that right now. Gilberto Mendoza and Welbin Francisco will probably not get offered their arbitration. Eddie Towler will probably not get offered his. Who else is arbitration? Looks like Rivera and Cardenas are arbitration eligible. They will likely get offered theirs. So we will save a couple $1 million from arbitration. Everyone else is pretty much league minimum. And that's a great thing for us, besides obviously our big contracts with Mason and then Taj and Leeson. And Greg Ricks will technically be like the 6th highest paid player on this team. So a very young team now, and a very, I guess, non-expensive team if you think about it. Although next year it looks like it jumps up quite a bit, mainly because of Danny Fouts' contract, Leeson's contract, and then a lot of arbitration eligibility. Artem is set to make $7 million, which is a pretty substantial amount, but he's pitching very well. Walkie Boer, who we might lock up long term, is projected to make $8 million. there's a lot of arbitration in here, and there's going to be a lot of decisions to make in that offseason because that's a pretty massive payroll. So some challenges coming up in the future for sure, but we will be able to handle those challenges more than likely, hopefully. But yeah, we got a bigger budget. Right now we don't have any money for extensions, and only $3 million left over for 2034, but that money that moves a little bit once you get to free agency, and the money gets moved around, and then like everything hits, especially when the arbitrations come off and things like that. All that's factored in right now, so that'll come up a little bit, and hopefully we will have money for extensions, but who knows? We may not. It's a pretty massive budget in 2035. But that is the season. We can do a quick review of the season and go from there. And we'll go through the lineup real quick just to do a quick down and dirty final recap of the season. Our backup catcher, Hosoda, did respectable for a backup catcher. 248, started out a lot better than what he ended up. He definitely went downhill quickly, but we mainly had him for his defensive ability. Vicente Jasso didn't do much better though at 239. He did hit 18 home runs for the second straight year, 51 RBIs, struck out 92 times, but definitely didn't do what we wanted him to do offensively, but still had a 2.8 WAR because of his defense. Blaze Jordan kind of went back into a backup role as the DH. He will be moving on after this season, and we really just have no place for him anymore. He hit 267, 6 home runs, and 35 RBIs in 102 games for us. Eddie Towler will probably be moving on from him as well. Just hasn't really ever performed with us. Super utility guy, good to have in the lineup for the backup stuff, but we have a few players like him that can fill in his role and have a little bit better profile hitting, and they are younger and cheaper, so most likely we'll move on from him. I can't promise that, but we'll definitely be looking for trades for him to not pay his arbitration. Next is Gunnar Sechka. Obviously, we had him out for quite a few weeks this year. I believe he had a concussion. That's what it was. He was out for 7 weeks for a concussion, and then he had gout right after that. So unfortunate, had quite a few injuries. He'll be 26 next year. Hit 241 for us, 2 home runs, 34 RBIs, stole 15 bases. 80 WRC plus with a .9 WAR. Does play a really good second base, so he will definitely be back next year. Steve Cook did well for us. 7 home runs, 38 RBIs in 84 games, 277 average with a 109 WRC plus. He will most likely be back with us next year. Danny Fouts, another solid season, 153 hits, obviously, only 143 games, so he's averaging over a hit a game. 53 doubles, which led the league, 8 triples, 8 home runs, 59 RBIs, stole 25 bases, struck out only 77 times while walking 75, the BRC plus of 112 and a 2.2 WAR. So just your very solid prototypical leadoff guy, hitting 360 or on base percentage of 360. His back-to-back seasons now, he's hit 270 or higher with the 359 or higher on base percentage. Didn't steal as many bases this year, but again, we talked about it, quite a few less games. But another solid season, he'll be still 25 to start next season. So at a $6 million price tag, I think that's a pretty good price tag to have him at, and he'll be in his 3rd season and already off to a very solid start to his career. Next is Welbin Francisco. Been a very valuable utility guy for us, but just doesn't have a spot anymore. He'll be right around 28 years old and making arbitration for the first time. He's only going to make 1.5 million, so there's a chance I bring him back, but he won't have any option years left, so he will have to either be on the team or when we call him up, like that's going to be it, or we'll have to DFA him. So definitely a decision we're going to have to make on him. Javorsky Lane obviously will be back next year. Hit 228, not ideal. 7 home runs, 43 RBIs. Just couldn't get it going offensively, but it was his first season, and we think that he's better than a 228 hitter. He's definitely playing great defense, but need the bat to come around a little bit, and hopefully it does next year. Juan Cardenas out for quite a while this year. We had him out for 5 weeks, cost him quite a bit. Wound up hitting 12 home runs, 48 RBIs, a 253 average with a 91 WRC plus. So just like everyone else, kind of a down season, and then he had to deal with some injuries. He will be making quite a bit of money next year at $9 million. Maybe it'll be a little bit less than that now since he didn't do so well this year. Maybe I can get a little bit less from the agent, but we'll see. Definitely will be back next year with us. Juan Rivera, our first ever 40 home run guy, 251 average, 301 on base percentage, a 2.4 WAR with a 113 WRC plus. Definitely had one of the better years out of all the players this year. Didn't hit many doubles, but hit 136 hits, and 40 of those 136 were home runs. So not bad for him this year. He will be close to 33 to start the season next year. Hopefully we can repeat that production and then get some other production from other areas next year to complement him. Next is Dylan Beavers. We had him up as a utility guy. Didn't do so hot, but was kind of the best option we had. He had 3 home runs and 9 RBIs in 41 games, 216 average with a 62 WRC plus, so he was below replacement level. He will be at 33 years old next year. There's a likelihood, yes, he will be a free agent, and we probably won't sign him. But you never know. Next is Mason Davis, who had the worst year of his career. Missed some time due to an injury, missed about a month. And then obviously the season was shortened a little bit, so he only hit 26 home runs. He almost somehow made it to 30 home runs, even though he only played in 119 games. 72 RBIs, struck out almost 200 times, stole 13 bases, still had a 2.9 WAR because of his defense, but had a 91 WRC plus. So definitely looking for a better year out of him next year, and I have a pretty good feeling he's going to have a decent year. Next is Isaac Cardenas, who had probably the best year out of the rookies that we had up. He hit 282 with a 333 on base percentage, 8 home runs, 55 RBIs. He played in 135 games, and he had a 2.7 WAR with a 94 WRC plus. He'll be 25 next year and most certainly be on the team. But that is our offense. Let's roll over to our pitching. We'll start with the rotation. Carlos Hernandez, had to pull him back onto the team because of the injury to Leeson. He was only a 1-year deal at $2 million. Almost certainty that he will not be back at 36. He will be 37 years old. I will not be bringing him back, although he led the league in games started and BABIP. So it's crazy. But he performed well for us considering what we needed him for. Can't complain there. Greg Ricks, 1 more year left on his contract. We will bring him back, and he will be in the rotation. He had a 4.29 ERA this year with 32 starts and 174 innings. So one of the worst years he's had with this, but not the worst. So hopefully next year he can rebound a little bit and get down into the 3s and give us a solid 4th or 5th guy in the rotation. Next is Walkie Boer, who was our rookie and led the team in ERA as far as like the starting rotation. 14-9 record with a 3.65 ERA in 31 starts. Of those 31 starts, 16 of them were considered quality starts. A 121 WR, 121 ERA plus with a 85 FIP minus and a 4.2 WAR. So a very, very good rookie season for Mr. Boer. Can't wait to see what he does next year. Next is Jim Berry. We had him up because of the injury to Taj. So he had a very limited role. 7 starts, a 4.42 ERA. Very good likelihood he will be in the rotation next year. He's 24 years old, pretty much fully developed. So he will be kind of a 4th or 5th, probably a 5th starter for us. And hopefully he can do a little bit better than a 4.42, but I don't know if he will. I think he could be a low 4s, high 3 ERA kind of guy. We'll see. Gonna need him next year, though. Next is Artem Alvarado, who had a solid season, a bounce-back season from his rookie campaign. He had a 3.71 ERA, 9-7 win record, 27 starts. Of his 27 starts, 15 of them were quality starts, 85 FIP minus, a 3.3 WAR. And interestingly enough, his Sierra was a 3.70, almost exactly in line with his ERA. That is hardly ever happens. But that is the rotation of those 5. I think 4 will definitely be back. I don't know if Jim Berry will be in the rotation, but 3 of those 5 will be in the rotation, and then we have some other prospects coming up that might take Barry's spot. We might can move Barry to the bullpen, but that's all future decisions that I have to make. All right, next is Connor Cook, who we have a option year on, and it's an interesting one. It's only $2 million, so I'll probably select that option. He's just never given me a reason not to. He struggled in 2030, but other than that, it hasn't been that bad. A 2.59 ERA in 31, a 3 ERA in 32, and a 3.10 ERA here in 2033 with 23 saves. So not a terrible season at all, and he will be just 34 years old. I say just because he'll probably going downhill. Jeff Middleton is next. Obviously, he'll be back. We have him signed long-term, 2.25 ERA this year. Missed some time because of injuries. Hopefully, we can get him for a full season next year. William Schmidt, a 4.15 ERA. Struggled down the stretch, but for the majority of the season, he had a 3 ERA until there at the very end. Pitched well for us. Struggled a little bit with that control as always, but nonetheless, a respectable bullpen arm. Next is Eric Emmanuel, who we promoted last year or this season, and he pitched in 47 games, 69 innings total. Did have 8 saves and 7 holds. We had him as a stopper for a little while. His 4.3 ERA, but his Sierra suggests he was getting a little bit unlucky at a 2.05. Not a bad year. We would like more out of that. Hopefully we can get him a little less unlucky and use him in the bullpen again next year. Next is Jimmy Boswell. Pitched in a very limited 8 innings, had a 5.62 ERA. We need that stuff to develop because otherwise he's just pretty much average. So if that stuff can develop, he might be a useful bullpen arm. Next is Alexis Loreto, who had his best season with us at a 2.41 ERA, 59 2/3 innings, had a 2.93 Sierra with a 92 FIP minus and a 184 ERA plus. So definitely a solid season from Mr. Alexis. Next is Mike Wheelock. Struggled a little bit at a 4.57, but pitched 41 in the third innings, had a 70 FIP minus and a 97 ERA plus. Struggles, I think it's mainly because of this stamina. Can't pitch much, so may or may not have him back. I'll have to look and see. I don't usually like 25 stamina. That usually never goes over well. Next is Steve Reeves, who had a 2.59 ERA, which is a little surprising to me given his control, curveball, and his stuff. But his movement and stuff like that, I guess, make up for it. He had pitched in 80 innings, so a very useful guy. A 171 ERA plus with an 89 FIB minus. Maybe he was getting lucky. His ERA, or his Sierra suggests he was at a 4.35, but I'll take luck. And he's durable, so he'll be back next year at the very minimum to start the season. And next is Marquise Best, a trade acquisition that we did with Salt Lake City in the offseason. Turned out really good for us, a 2.12 ERA in 34 games and pitched 29 and 2/3 innings, so he's pretty much primarily a lefty specialist for us, but has 60 FIB minus and a 209 ERA plus. So right in line with what he did with Salt Lake City in 2032. He did the very same with us and is a very reliable lefty specialist. Lefties were hitting .089 off of him, so can't complain there. They had a 1.29 ERA against him. So definitely a very solid lefty specialist at the very minimum. But that is the down and dirty review of the team. A lot of decisions to make in the offseason. I think it'll be a pretty similar team next year. There's a few things that I would like to change, and hopefully we can get a few pitching prospects up in the major leagues. Most notably Leeson and Simbrat. I think if we could have Simbrat and Leeson, Ricks, Boer, and Alvarado, that's a really deadly rotation. And then you factor in that with this bullpen. If they could perform what they did again this year for next year, they're going to be lights out, and we can just get the hitting going. This team could be a force to be reckoned with next year, and I hope that's the case. I really do. We are due for that 3 seasons straight of 500 or better baseball, so that is a positive sign. Now we just need to continue that and figure out a way to get over that hump and get back into the playoffs. But yeah, I think that's going to do it for us. I will end this episode and end this series or I shouldn't say end it. I will pause this series for a while so I can get moved and get in place in my new location on the East Coast. But rest assured, I will be back. I won't do too much here offline. I might play a little bit tonight and then some tomorrow just to kind of make some decisions while it's all fresh in my mind so I don't forget it and a month later forget to do it, and then had options to make moves and I didn't do it just because I forgot all about it with everything going on. So I might do a few things, sim ahead a few days, but it won't be much. And when I pick it back up with you guys, we'll still be in the off season here in 2033 and preparing for our big run in 2034 that I think we're going to make. I think it's going to be a good year. I really do. And I can't wait to experience it with you guys. But until then, I appreciate you guys so much for watching, and I have had a ton of fun, and I cannot wait to get back to this and continue making these episodes and sharing this experience with you guys. But that's going to have to wait until a few weeks from now. So until then, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a fantastic day and a fantastic next month or so. I will see you guys in the next episode. Have a good one.